Okay, so thank you very much, Professor Kumas, for your very kind introduction. My name is Zhao. I'm from School of Medicine, Suzhou University in China. So today, it's my great honor to give a lecture about Chinese culture at Kyoto University. So the title of my presentation is Drug Discovery in China, from traditional Chinese medicine to emerging nanomedicine. My lecture mainly consists of 4 parts: introduction, evolution of drug discovery in China, summary and outlook, and finally I will give you a brief introduction of Suzhou, the city I am living in, and the Suzhou University, the university now I'm working for. Introduction. So the history of human being is just the history of fighting against the various diseases. Every day, millions of people's lives are threatened by serious diseases such as cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease. Therefore, the discovery of efficient drugs is very crucial to win this war against the diseases. Today, my topic is about the drug discovery in China. So as you know, China is a big country in the west of Japan. So China has a total area of 9.6 million square kilometers, a population of about 1.4 billion. And China has a very long history of civilization of over 5,000 years. I will introduce the evolution of drug discovery from traditional Chinese medicine, so several thousand years ago, to currently emerging nanomedicine. So as a historic country, China was one of the first countries to have a medical culture. In comparison with Western medicine, Chinese medicine takes a far different approach. During these 5,000 years, it formed a unique knowledge of medical science and theory, including Qi. In English, we call this energy flow, and also Yin-Yang and Wu-Xing theory. So I think it's totally different from the Western medicine. The prescription of Chinese medicine is called Chinese herbs. So in Chinese we call it 中药. In Japanese, probably we can call it kanboyaku. The ancient Chinese people looked for drugs from natural source, especially from a variety of plants. For example, the leaves, flowers, roots, and even the barks of the plants. So that is why we call this kind of drug herbs. Some of the prescription of Chinese medicine also use parts of animal and even minerals for drugs. For example, this deer horn and tortoise cells, and also this amber, are very valuable Chinese herbs. It costs a lot, I think. And some very toxic minerals. For example, this arsenic trioxide. Everybody knows it's a very toxic compound. But in ancient China, and even now, so many doctors tried to use this arsenic trioxide to treat leukemia. This is a very serious blood disease. Chinese herbalists record the property and the efficacy of herbs to form a large number of literatures, many of which are handed on generation by generation until now. One of the oldest literature of Chinese herb was compiled more than 2,000 years ago. 神农本草经 and 本草纲目 are two most important and classic books, so which are still on the shelf of many Chinese doctors. So these two books collected more than 5,000 different kind of herbs. Previously, Chinese people used to made the herb into decoctions or large round pears to drink or eat. However, so these are too difficult for children and the Western people. So to address this issue, currently Chinese herbs are usually produced to sweet creams and also smaller pears. It's much easier to take by patients. And right now we can find many drugstores of Chinese herbs all over the world. So one of the most famous drugstore of Chinese herbs in Beijing is Tongren-Tang. It has a history of more than 300 years. And until now, it's still selling many kind of traditional Chinese herbs. In Hong Kong also, there are many traditional, many drugstores for traditional Chinese herbs. So we can see this kanji. This means the drug already produced, so the patient can take as it is. You don't need to boil with water and make some pears. And even in Singapore, we can also find many drugstores for Chinese herbs. And in Japan, also we can find the stores for Kamboyak. So this picture is taken in Matsumoto Kiyoshi, so maybe everybody knows. Almost, I think more than 100 kind of Kamboyak are in sale in Matsumoto Kiyoshi. So if you go to this store, you can please have a look. So from the beginning of the 19th centuries, modern medicine was developed in Western country. So the difference between traditional medicine and modern medicine is that traditional medicine just use a crude extract from the plants or animals or minerals. But the modern medicine, they use active component with exact structure and very clear property. So the first modern medicine, morphine, was isolated from opium in 1803, so almost 200 years ago, by a German chemist. So this is a very effective painkiller. So even now, so we can also find the application of morphine in hospitals. So unlike traditional medicine, mainly based on experience, the discovery of modern medicine consists of scientific research, screening, and clinical trials, and finally mass production by drug companies. However, at that time, Chinese people didn't know what is science and research. So China, until now, so China also Chinese pharmaceutical industry is still very weak. So we can see the top 50 pharma company of last year. So United States has 16 companies, Japan has 8 companies, and even India has 1 company. But for China, 0. However, during these years, Chinese scientists made some important breakthrough in modernization of Chinese herbs. So as you know, the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine was awarded to these 3 scientists. So the last one, the last scientist is from China, Yu Tu. So her contribution is the invention of a novel therapy against malaria. So what is malaria? Malaria is a type of very serious tropic disease transmitted by mosquitoes. In South America, Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, millions of people are suffering from malaria every day. And it also caused many people died. In 1967, the Chinese government launched a project for seeking a new anti-malaria drug. This is a project it's a very secret project, so for army. Because at that time, so Vietnam has had a war against the United States, and the Chinese government supports North Vietnam. So during the war, many Vietnam soldiers died from malaria. So the leader of North Vietnam asked the leader of China to develop some anti-malaria drug for them. So under this background, so this project 523 was launched. So there are more than 500 Chinese scientists are involved in this project, including Tu Yu. Tu and her teams looked for prescription of malaria from traditional Chinese literatures. So one of the prescription in this book described that Qinghao, this plant called Qinghao. Qinghao can be used for malaria treatment. However, when the researchers found use this Qinghao to treat the patient, they found the result is not stable. Sometimes they get very good efficacy, but sometimes they did not. And to read this sentence, and they found probably the process for extract Qinghao from this plant is very important, because usually Chinese people use water to boil the plant to extract the effective component from this drug. But to think probably the temperature is too high, and the high temperature destroys the chemical structure of the effective component. So finally, he decided to use ether to extract this Qinghao, and they successfully isolate the component and identified the chemical structure of this compound. So they call this Qinghao Su in 1972. But at that time, because this is one of the top secret, so they cannot publish any paper. And after 7 years, they just published a paper in Chinese. And the tool's name was not on the paper. So the author name is the group of scientists for discovery of anti-malaria drugs. So, so based on the chemical structure of Qinghao Su, a group of scientists in the United States complete the total synthesis through 20-step reactions. The results were published in JACS in 1983. And currently, a number of pharmaceutical companies, both in China and in Switzerland, and this is in France, are producing Qinghao Su, saving millions of lives every year. In 20th century, the drug discovery moved to a nano era. So in 1959, Professor Feynman gave his famous lecture. There is plenty of room at the bottom. Starting the research of nanotechnology. So what is nanotechnology? Nanotechnology is a research in tiny scale, so from 1 nanometer to 100 nanometer. So after that, so many people are focused on the research of nanotechnology, not only in chemistry, but also in physics and even in medicine. So the combination of nanotechnology and medicine generate a new medicinal matter called nanomedicine. So we can see dendrimers, polymers, and the matter nanoparticles, and the nanocrystals. So all of them can be used as nanomedicine. And the size is comparable to some biological species. For example, the antibody has a size of about 12 nanometer. And we can see the dendrimers, the size is less than 10 nanometer. So we can use this kind of very small particles to interact with antibody and produce some therapeutic effect. The application of nanomedicine in there are two main applications. The first one is bioimaging. So the nanoparticles can act as an imaging agent. And right now, the nanoparticles has already applied in X-ray computed tomography. We call this CT in the hospital. And magnetic resonance imaging, MRI. So these two are very common in the hospital for diagnosis of diseases. And also the near-infrared fluorescence from the nanoparticle can be used for imaging, and ultrasound imaging and quite recently, photoacoustic imaging are also used for the diagnosis of cancer. So some nanoparticles can even pass through the blood-brain barrier and go into the human's brain. So if there is any brain tumor, probably we can use nanoparticle to image it, and then we can do the surgery precisely. And the second application of nanomedicine is therapy. Just as I said, so the size of nanomedicine is very, very small. It can go into the blood vessel of a human and act as a nanorobot for surgery. So probably in the future, doctors don't need to open the patient's body. They just inject some nanorobot into the blood vessel, and this smart nanorobot can find the cancer or some other disease and kill the cells. And the other application for therapy is nanoparticles. Nanoparticles can act as a carrier for drug delivery. So as we know, when we take drugs, so only a little amount of drug can be can go to the part, can go to the diseases part. But if we use a nanoparticle as a carrier, it can target the disease part, for example, cancer, and then send a lot of therapeutic agent into the cancer cells and effectively kill the cancer cells. And also, this nanoparticle can prevent the drug resistant effect of cancer cells. So right now, so many groups are focused on this drug delivery using nanomedicine. But for the nanorobot, so right now I think is too early. More research and more research is needed for this nanorobot. So in recent 5 years, we can see that the paper about nanomedicine published in the journals. I searched this topic, nanomedicine, from 2010 to 2015 by Web of Science. So as you can see in this picture, the United States scientists published many papers, more than 1,000 papers. And the second place is China. So China people also spend a lot of money and spend a lot of time to do the research in nanomedicine. But we can see Japan is number 11. So probably we need more people, more groups to do research in this nanomedicine. In China, there are two national institutes for the research of nanomedicine. The first one is the Nano Center for Nanoscience and Technology. The second one is the Chinese Academy of Science. So there are many excellent researchers doing the research in these two institutes. So most of the researchers, they come back from the United States. So they get PhD or they did a postdoc in United States for several years. And when they come back to China, they just continue their work. So one professor in my university, his name is Zhao Liu. So you can see his publication of this year. So just from January to May, so he already published more more than, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 good papers. So anyway, so in China, there are many young researchers like Zhao Liu. So the competition is also very, very serious. And finally, I want to talk about the clinical translation of nanomedicine, because the research should be used in clinic. Otherwise, the research is just a research. So in medical science, we call this from bench to bedside. So this is an example of recent clinical translation in China. So maybe Kuma Sensei, you know this gadolinium encapsulated fullerene. So it's a kind of carbon nanomaterials. And recently, this group, Professor Zhao Yulang's group at Chinese Academy of Science, they found the gadolinium encapsulated fullerene nanomaterials can act as a non-toxic breast cancer stem cell inhibitor. So it can prevent the growth of this breast cancer stem cells. And it can also inhibit the metastasis. And so after publishing this paper, they filed a patent and decided to do the clinical translation. So they launched a project in Beijing and successfully attracted a large amount of money from the government. Probably within 3 or 4 years, they will produce this kind of a drug for the clinical trials. So if the clinical trials result is good, and they will move to the mass production. And he is one of the visiting professor of my department. So I want to summarize this part and give some outlook. So first, the traditional Chinese medicine contribute a lot to the medical care of human health. And during these several thousand years, not only in China, but also in Japan, in Korea, in Vietnam, Singapore, all over the world. And second, Chinese herbs are a big treasury, the modernization of which will produce more valuable drugs. Like Tu Yu, he found the Qinghao Shu for malaria treatment. So probably we can find more effective drugs from Chinese herbs. And third, I think China needs to enhance its pharmaceutic industry because it's too weak, as you can see. So even India has a very successful company, but China doesn't have. And finally, the research of nanomedicine in China is very active. We publish many papers, but I think more attention should be paid to clinic translation. So in the future, we should use this nanomedicine not only in the lab, but also in the hospital. And finally, I want to briefly introduce you Suzhou City and Suzhou University. So Suzhou is one of the major cities located in East China. It's very close to Shanghai. And it has a very long history of over 2,500 years. So it's a former economic and cultural center of China. After And after 1860, so Suzhou is replaced by Shanghai. So now Shanghai is the economic center of China. And currently, the city has a population of about 5.3 million. I think more than Kyoto. Suzhou is very famous for its classic gardens. So because 100 years ago, so many rich men live in this city. So they built a lot of beautiful gardens. Except for garden, so the corners in Suzhou is also famous. So if you go to Suzhou, you can get on the boat and you can travel in this corner. And also the temple. So many Japanese knows this Hansanji, right? Kansanji.
Cold, right?
Yeah. Yes. So each year, many Japanese tourists go to Suzhou and visit this temple because there is a story between China and Japan about this temple. Yeah. So it's a very nice city for tourists, for tourism. And now Suzhou is also a modern city. So at night we can see it's very beautiful, just like Hong Kong or Shanghai. I think it's a very modern. It's not just historic, but it's also a modern city. And about the culture of Suzhou, Suzhou is also rich in colorful culture. So the Kunqu opera, so we call this the mother of all Chinese opera. So this is a story of our very old story. We call this Mudan Ting. So this story is very popular in China. Probably you don't know, but if you are interested, you can just read some books about this. And Suzhou Pingtan is a local music and oral performance. Also tell old stories. So when the natives play Pingtan, they will always pick the pipa and sing a song. But for men, so they use a different instrument. I don't know the name, but yeah, for ladies, they always use pipa. And Suzhou silk embroidery is also famous in China. So it's one of the best souvenir for the foreigners. So many people went to Suzhou and buy this handcraft. And next, I want to introduce my university, Suzhou University. The main campus of Suzhou University is located in the east of ancient Suzhou city. So you can see the river. This river surrounds the city. And on the bank of the moat, so just on the bank of the moat. And this campus is among one of the most beautiful campus in China. But this university is not funded by Chinese. It's funded by American Modest in 1900. So the first chancellor name is Dr. Yang J. Allen. And so, you know, after 1949, the new government changed the style. So part of the Suzhou University moved to Taiwan. So right now they still have the old name, Dongwu University. But for us, the name of the university already changed to Suzhou University. So this university is a very historic university. Like Tsinghua University, there are also two Tsinghua University. One is in Beijing and the other one is in Taiwan.
Also, we can find the same name of the university in Taiwan also.
Yes.
Suzhou University in Taiwan.
Right now they use this name.
They changed the name.
They use the original name. We changed the name. Yeah. And you can look at the campus. So owing to the Methodist background and the Suzhou local culture, so you can find many historic buildings with either Western style and also the Chinese style. So for Chinese building, you can always see a small river and a bridge across the river and a little house. This is one of the typical building in Suzhou. And also you can see that this is a tower for bell tower. This is a bell tower. And about academics, Suzhou University is one of the key comprehensive university in China with 12 major subjects, including philosophy, economics, law, literature, history, science, engineering, medicine, management, and arts. So currently, Suzhou University has more than 22,000 undergraduate students and more than 12,000 graduate students. And this university also attracted more than 2,000 foreign students. And finally, so before ending this lecture, I would like to thank Professor Kumas for invitation and the generous support from Kyoto University, the permission from my university, and Wikipedia for materials of this PPT. And lastly, I want to thank Ms. Ogino for poster design and attracting so many attendees here. Thank you very much.